Hi, and welcome to Decoded, Coding Temple's dual podcast series where we will explore how people are navigating the changing tech world in light of AI revolution. Whether you are a tech leader or someone trying to find your feet in the tech industry, our podcast guests will guide you through best practices and share their top tips on how to navigate this changing landscape of tech revolution. This week, in Career and Tech Insights track episode, the AI Job Hunt Playbook, we bring you everything students think they know about the job search and what recruiters actually care about in 2025. Our guest, global talent strategist, HR tech futurist, and AI job market expert, Jim Stroud, peels back the curtain on how hiring really works in an AI filtered world. Whether you're prepping for interviews with ChatGPT, wondering how recruiters assess your online presence, or trying to beat the bots without gaming the system, Jim's playbook gives you the tools and the mindset shift you need for the new world of work. So, Jim, without further ado, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So, tell our audience, how do you describe the work that you do every day?
Well, I'm currently the editor for SourceCon, which is a sourcing conference. I reach out to recruiting leaders. I interview them on the different topics they would like to set our conference. And then I book them for various conferences that we have. SourceCon is one, but there's several other conferences that we have as well. So plan those conferences and sort of go from there. It's sort of I like it because it helps me stay abreast of all the different changes that are happening in the world of work. And there are a lot of things happening. It's like every day something new and different is like blowing my mind there.
Absolutely. And so, from your experience as a recruiter in particular, what mind shift sets people have to be in to kind of adapt to this current day and age changes in the world of AI, do you think?
I think the best way to adapt to this changing world is to understand that it's constantly changing and that it will always it will keep changing. And I think that the best way to prepare for it is to learn how to learn and how to adapt. I think people who are constant learners, people who are lifelong students, who always are checking out the latest and greatest and learning what's coming out next and staying up to date, those are the ones that will thrive. I remember when I initially started in recruiting way back in in the 90s, which seems like yesterday. The recruiting world was a lot different then. You didn't have as many tools. You were more people centered because you didn't have all these tools to sift through all the resumes that you received. And now it seems like it's more tech focused. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. When I look back at how things were, recruiters spent more time developing relationships over time because people give referrals. Recruiters will go from one company to another, and then they'll have their relationships with them that they then place them in new companies where they ended up recruiting for. And now, although that still happens, I don't see it so much. I see a lot of recruiters when a job is posted, rather than work the relationships that they have, the reflex is to go straight to LinkedIn or to start looking for new people instead of nurturing the people that they've already built a relationship with over time. The recruiters in my generation, my generation, they're more relationship centered, I think. And a lot of the newer recruiters, they're so used to using these tools and so used to the websites that they're able to connect with a lot of people per se, but they're not developing the relationships as much as I would like them to, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. So, speaking about tools, how are those modern day recruiters using those sourcing tools, particularly AI sourcing tools?
Yeah, it's interesting. There are so many tools available online to find candidates. Top of mind, they can seek out, hire easy, several others out there. And each of these tools will more or less say, if you're looking for talent, use our tool and we will find the best talent on the internet for you. It will rank the different resumes so that only the best of the best candidates that apply will reach the top of your notice. And so just buy our tool and everything will be fine. which is not a bash against these tools because there are a lot of tools out there that do good work. But what I've noticed in a conversation that I've been having with several people is that if you, as a recruiter, have the best sourcing tool out there, right, then I can buy the same tool. So, what advantage does anyone really have when the same tools are available to everybody at the same time? So, I think what that means for recruiters is that they have to be very good in how they talk to people. They have to be very good with relationship management. They have to be very good at empathy, and they have to be very good at the soft skills overall. And I think what separates good recruiters from recruiters that give recruiting a bad name is that good recruiters know how to talk to people. They know how to look them in the eye, carry conversation, build a relationship, so forth. A lot of the newer recruiters I've noticed, they're so tech driven is in that they'll look for certain keywords in a resume, but not really understand what the person does, right? They may see Java, but overlook that the Java on their resume refers to Starbucks coffee instead of software development. They're just so keyword minded. And um, it's challenging, I think, for some job seekers in that they want to optimize their resume so that the right keywords appear on their resume so that the recruiter, whether they are an experienced recruiter or a less experienced recruiter, will still review them. But at the same time, you also don't want your resume too perfect because, as I was talking with someone earlier, a lot of recruiters have this concern about AI produced resumes. You know, when every resume can be perfectly optimized for a job, how does that recruiter know that that person really is good for the role? They will have to talk to them. Recruiters don't have the time to talk to every candidate that applies. So it's quite the conundrum, right? A recruiter can post a job and literally get 100 resumes in an hour or 2 hours or whatever, right? And so the technology has been a catch 22, and a lot of recruiters are really complaining about it. I saw this one article that a recruiter was writing about different ways to spot fake profiles, or people who have overly optimized the resume. I mean, I wouldn't tell anybody not to optimize their resume for a job, but there's a way to do it, and there's a way not to overdo it, right? And now what I'm noticing is that if a resume is too perfect, that everything, the candidate does everything in a perfect way, then recruiter is going to be a little suspect. Like, you look a little too good. I don't know if you're really perfect for this job, as you say. That does that make sense? I feel like I'm rambling that a little bit.
Yeah, no, it does make a lot of sense. So, what do you think is the golden rule of how to make your CV optimized but not perfect?
Yeah, I think what will make a candidate stand out now more than ever is personal branding, strong social proof that you are qualified for the job. A resume is just an introduction, it's just a starting point. And with so many resumes out there being optimized so perfectly, I think a recruiter is going to look for additional evidence that's not on your resume. So, for example, let's say I'm looking at a resume and the person is a Python engineer. And on paper, this person is awesome. I mean, you would think they invented Python. By the way, their resume glows, right? And so I'm going to think, okay, if this person really is this good, let me look for some proof beyond the resume. Let me look up his name. Let me see if he has an outstanding GitHub recommendation. You know, let me see if he's on Stack Overflow. Let me see what his peers are saying about his work. What kind of thing does he write about on his social media? Does he talk about the latest and greatest developments with Python and so forth? If he does, and that tells me that this person wants to stay up to date on the latest trends in Python development. So things like that. I would want to if you're this great, I should see some sign of it outside of your resume. if that makes sense.
Yes, awesome. So that just kind of highlights the importance of people not just getting stuck on focusing on their resumes, but actually going that step further and making sure they do additional activities, whether it's on other social media, GitHub, like you mentioned, and things like that. Yep.
And if I may too, I'm sorry, because when you said that, it reminded me of something else. In addition to promoting a strong personal brand for your resume, it's important that you do that not only so that recruiters can find you, can validate your credentials, but also so that all recruiters can find you. And this is what I mean by that. When a candidate applies for a job and he goes into a link through LinkedIn or through Indeed or some other job board, all recruiters do not have access to your resume at that point. Only the recruiters who have paid for that service. So as a job seeker, when you apply for Indeed, you're thinking it's free, which it is for you. But companies have to pay to access the resumes that go into Indeed. There are a lot of different job boards out there. So every recruiter is not going to pay for every job board out there. Just like some people will only pay for Netflix, but they won't pay for Hulu and all these other live streaming services. They only have a couple of them, right? Same thing with job boards. So if you only post your resume in these job boards, all recruiters are not seeing your credentials, so you're hurting yourself. This is why I say you should have a strong personal brand. At the very least, create a blog and put your resume on a blog. Depending on how you want to brand yourself, say, for example, the world's greatest Python engineer. I don't know why I'm on Python, but this is in my head. So, world's greatest Python engineer, right? That's on your resume. It would be in your best interest to also set up multiple social media accounts: YouTube, Pinterest, X, Threads. Even if you're not active on all these social media platforms, in your profile, you put, I'm John Doe, the world's greatest Python engineer. So when someone is doing a search for Python engineer, they'll see your name pop up from your blog or from your YouTube profile or your Threads profile. And it's just basically search engine optimization is what you're doing, right? So many opportunities I've received over the years, that amazes me that I got them, if I'm being honest, because there are people out there much smarter than I am. Um, the reason why I got them was not just because of my credentials, but it also was because they did a search on Google and my name popped up over others because other people did not optimize their profile. They did not post their resume beyond a job board. So because recruiters could do a search, every recruiter can do a search on Google for free. So my information was available to all recruiters at all times. And that still holds true today, maybe even more so because, and I'm studying up on this, so I can't really speak too much on it, but I know there are ways to optimize your information so that AI picks it up, ChatGPT and Perplexity and other AIs out there. There are ways to do that. I don't know those yet, so I can't really speak to it, but that's something I'm researching, something, some homework for the listeners to do as well. It's in your best interest because if your information is out there publicly, then a sourcing tool can find it and you increase the chances of being found for opportunities when you do that.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
long rant.
No, this is very great and useful advice, actually. Never heard that before, which is awesome. Okay, so speaking about other ways of trying to kind of get in front of recruiters, trying to, optimize your job search overall. You mentioned in the past to me about creating groups of job hunting people. If you don't mind expanding a little bit about that.
Sure, sure, sure. That is probably the most useful job hunting tip I can give to anyone, right? I call the technique job hunting as a team sport. Generally, when someone is looking for a job, they would, and I'll just talk about me. Earlier in my career, when I was looking for work, I would go through the different job boards, go to different career fairs, do everything I knew how to do to find opportunities. And I did that for several weeks, didn't get anywhere, and I just gave myself a headache. And then it just hit me, do something different. What I decided to do was to build a job hunting team, right? Sort of get an idea of how you may think of this, you being the listener. Imagine that you are a cashier at Publix and you work alongside someone who is bagging the groceries. There is a store manager over here somewhere. You got a stock person stocking up the groceries. So you have all these different people working alongside you as a cashier. They all have specific jobs such as you do, but they don't compete for the same job you do because you all do something different. One thing I learned from making job hunting a team sport is that when I'm looking for work, I don't team up with people who are looking for the same kind of job I am because they have bills to pay. They have a family to feed. So if they come across a great job, they're going to take it for themselves. I mean, who wouldn't, right? So it's important to team up with people who understand what you do, but who don't compete for the same job that you do, right? So you get about uh, 3 or 4 people, maybe five, that can who understand what you do. I don't know in software developer sense. Maybe they're a quality assurance person, or there's an SDET from Microsoft. Anyway, you know your role better than I do. So think about 3 or 4 people who work alongside you, who are looking for work around the same time you are. You reach out to them and say, "Hey, I'm looking for work. I see on LinkedIn that you're open to work, or I hear that you're open to work from a friend. Why don't we team up and look for work together?" What does that look like? That looks like we get together once a week. We make assignments for each other. You say, okay, I'm going to go to these career fairs. I'm going to look at these job boards. I'm going to talk to these people in my network because I know they know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And you sort of figure out what you're going to do, right? Then you say, okay, we're all going to disperse with our assignments and do whatever. And then we're going to come back at the end of the week and share intelligence. Oh, when I went to the job boards, I found this. Oh, when I looked through the Reddit forums, I saw this founder talk about how he needed people for his new startup. I went to this career fair and I met this person and they said this, that, and the other. So what you're doing is you're expanding your job search exponentially, right? But without the wear and tear on your mental health, without using up all your gas money where you have a lot of gas money to spend or whatever. And you're talking to more people through other people, and you're getting more opportunities than you normally would at a much faster rate. Once you have done that for a while and you start scoring interviews for yourself or other people in your team have interviews, what you do then at the end of the interview with the recruiter, you say, "Hey, recruiter, can I get another minute of your time before we go?" Recruiter says, "Sure." So you're looking to hire me, a Python engineer, but I happen to know a really great quality assurance person. They love to debug and decompile all this kind of stuff. You mind if I introduce you to them? 9 times out of 10, I'll even say 10 times out of 10, recruiters say sure, because recruiters are going to think, hey, you never know. I might be able to place this person. So the recruiter say, sure, send it to me. So what you do then, when you get home, you send a follow-up email to the recruiter. Hey, recruiter, appreciate your time today. As you may recall, I mentioned a buddy of mine who's a great debugger. I've attached his resume or I'm copying him on this email. Hopefully you guys can connect. Great. This does a couple of things. One, it tells the recruiter, this person is connected. They know different people. I better treat this person right because he may refer additional hires to me on down the road, right? Two, it tells the person that you're teamed up with, you're looking out for me because you referred me to a recruiter who is presently hiring people because they interviewed you, so they're hiring for different roles. So this company is in a growth phase, and you put me in front of somebody who's actually hiring right now. Thank you for that. So you do that for the people on your team. Your teammates are doing that for you. Speeds up the hiring process. Speeds up the process of all you guys finding work at the same time. Now, after everyone is placed, because you got to have this gentleman's agreement, handshake agreement that we're going to keep doing this till everybody in the group is hired, which is why I suggest keeping it it's kind of small. You want to have 20 people, and because then it gets harder when you're actually working anyway. So once you have your teammates, they're all hired on the job. You say, okay, let's get together again, say a year from now, just to touch base. You touch base a year from now, and you say, hey, how are things going on your job? Say, oh, it's great. It's this, that, and the other, right? So, okay, so what's next on your career ladder? Oh, I want to go from a junior software engineer to a software engineer, eventually become a CTO or VP of engineering or something, right? You say, cool, I'm going to leverage my connections at my company. And if something comes up that will help you in your career progression, I'll make an introduction to you. And then likewise, you do the same thing for them. If they want to be, whatever, you leverage your connections at your company to help them. Now you have built a network among you and your friends looking out for each other, not just to find a job today, but to keep finding a job on down the road. And if you manage it right, that will really, really help your career long term. I've done that several times. That is the number one way that I find work when I'm looking, because I've been laid off many times in my career. But that is the number one way to find work and to find it faster, because when you have other people working with you, it's a lot faster than you doing it by yourself. And it really helps your mental health. I can't tell you how it drives you crazy to look for a job and you feel like you're all alone. But when you have other people and you meet with them regularly and you're encouraging each other, it definitely means a lot, helps a lot. So that's the
This,
number one way. There are other ways, but that's my number one.
this is golden. Absolutely
Yep.
golden advice to everybody. Thank you so much. What other kind of, you just mentioned this is your number one.
These are my go-to. I'm only going to share it with you and your listeners. All right. So number two way that very beneficial, because I would tell you to do this, you being the listener, as well as everybody on your team to do this as well. Create content on LinkedIn. All right. You can create content other places, but especially on LinkedIn. This is why. All right. So let's say, sticking with my software example, say you are a penetration tester, right? And you know all the ways to hack into a system. Write an article about, these are the top three ways most HR systems are vulnerable to hackers, right? Just write that up. Something super helpful, right? Something people go like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that before, Put it out on LinkedIn, and then you're going to start looking at who is your content, who is sharing your content, who is commenting. Because what you're doing really is building a honey trap, right? So people who like your article, they'll give it a like. And you look at who liked your content, and you say, "Oh, I see John Doe here like my content. Let's see who that is. Oh, he's the senior software developer at Company X. Let me go to Company X's website. Oh, they have jobs there. Ooh, there's a job that I like. So let me reach out to John Doe of Company X. Say, hey, John Doe, thanks for liking my content about penetration testing. By the way, I see that you have a penetration tester role on your company. Would you mind connecting me with somebody? And to sweeten this, make this even easier for you, do you have an employee referral program at your company? Most companies do. Why don't you refer me over to the recruiter? I'll send you my resume and you send it over to the recruiter. If I get hired, you get the employee referral bonus. If I don't get hired, what have you lost? 5 seconds of emailing. I'll even write the email for you if that makes it better and lay out the reasons why I'm a good fit for this job. So for the cost of 5 seconds to send off my resume to somebody, you would get the employee referral bonus. And if not, you've lost nothing. So I would do that. I would look at who liked it. I would look at who shared it. I would look at who comment and do the same thing. See who they are, see where they work, see if there's a job there I want, hit them up, say, hey, refer me. You can get the employee referral bonus. That is my number two. That also worked. All right. So my number three that works a lot too, and this just generally gets me more projects than full-time jobs, but You may want a gig work thing, right? Come up with a topic that would be of interest to a prospective employer, right? So sticking with my software example, um, top 10 ways most company systems are vulnerable, right? I'll stick with that example, right? So I'll write down, I may refer to the article that I've already did on LinkedIn, as an example. I may write a few more things down. Then I will write a pitch letter. And I would say to someone who is a podcaster like yourself, hey, podcaster, I see that you have a podcast on technology. Well, my name is John Doe. I am the world's greatest penetration tester, and I know 10 ways that most systems are vulnerable. I would love to be a guest on your show to discuss how um, companies can protect their systems from being hacked. Get on the show, you say something smart, and then um, 9 times out of 10, the podcaster will say, great having you on the show. How can someone get in contact with you for more information? Then you say, oh, they can look me up on LinkedIn. They go to LinkedIn, they see your profile, which is basically your resume, basically, right? And they get impressed by your credentials. And then that can lead on to other things. You know, at the very least, they may follow you because they see that you've written content around vulnerabilities and follow you for that. And then when they like you, you can see who they are, follow that way. So that's a good honey trap that way too. The advantages of doing it this way in reaching out to podcasters is that you're talking to a targeted audience. So a podcast about security, cybersecurity, is going to be smaller than Joe Rogan's podcast, which just has 100 million people, right? Which is good, right? Because you don't want to talk to 100 million people who don't care or don't know anything about cybersecurity. You want to talk to a podcast that has, maybe 1,000 listeners, but they're all people who have an interest in cybersecurity, and these are people who may be able to hire you. So you want to look at the smaller podcast first. There's an advantage with that too, because with a smaller podcast or especially a newer podcast, they don't have a big audience yet, right? So you have a much better chance of getting on their show, right? And then as their show continues to grow and becomes popular over time, what people do once they like a show is they'll say, oh, that was a great episode. Let me look at the archives and see what I've missed. They go through the archives. What do you know? They see you there as a cybersecurity penetration tester extraordinaire. Let me listen to this podcast. So now someone is listening to a podcast that you were in, and you're saying all these great, wonderful things. You some maybe a year ago, but they reach out to you anyway, and they say, "Hey, I heard you on this podcast. I think what you said was awesome. Can we talk about A, B, or C, or this project, thing like that?" So it's the gift that keeps on giving. And if you like this kind of thing, you're thinking that's awesome, but how do I even start? How do I know how to find them? These podcasts. I'm gonna give you a couple of websites to check out. Okay. So one is called Listen Notes. That's LISTENNO, Listen Notes, just like it sounds. It's a podcast search engine. Just type in cybersecurity or type in decompiler or whatever term you want to look for, right? And you'll find a list of podcasts that are either focused on that particular keyword that you're searching on, or they did an episode based on that. And if they did an episode based on whatever you searched on in the past, or if they're a podcast totally dedicated to it, definitely reach out to them and say, hey, can I be a guest on your show? There's another site as well called matchmaker.fm. Matchmaker.fm sounds like a love site or dating site, but it's not. What Matchmaker.fm does, it's a way to match up podcast guests, podcast hosts. So what you would do is you would fill out a profile, say, hey, I'm John Doe. I'm the world greatest uh, um, vulnerability expert. And this is who I am. This is what I do. This is my experience. You should book me on your show if you ever want to talk about cybersecurity. If you ever want to talk about penetration testing or vulnerabilities, whatever, I'm the person. Reach out to me. And then someone, like a podcaster, would go through matchmaker.fm, do a search for cybersecurity expert or whatever, technology. Name pops up. Oh, wow. Okay. I see that he's been on other podcasts because other people would have reached out to you, hopefully by then. And you say, okay, yeah, come on to the show and talk. And boom. So you're promoting yourself today. And over time, as their show gets popular, you're in the archives, people will reach out to you much later. So
Wow.
those three things are really great, really helpful. Yes.
I'm definitely going to check the Matchmaker FM myself. Thank you very much for the advice. This is awesome. Wow,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you so much for sharing this. Okay, so that's some really good actionable advice for our listeners. Um, Say they do all of these things, they get an interview. Now, how can students adopt AI, particularly, to practice and help them prepare for behavioral or technical interviews?
Sure. One thing I would stress is not to cheat in any way. And this is what I mean by that. There are different tools that are out there. I won't mention them. It's not to incentivize anyone. But there are tools out there that will allow a job seeker to look over here to the left at another screen, but the AI would make it seem like they're looking straight at the camera. So someone could be looking over here, doing research to find the answer to a technical question, but the recruiter just sees them looking straight ahead the whole time. Yeah, there is a underground industry, I'll just call it that, where people can pay for people to interview on your behalf. It costs $150 an hour. Which I'll tell you after the podcast where that is if you're curious. But yeah, that is a growth industry that a lot of people are doing. $150 an hour in India is the going rate there. So there are a lot of different ways that people are using AI to cheat in interviews. So much so, there is a lot of talk about companies relying more heavily on assessments, giving you questions and stuff to figure out. But also, there is the ultimate assessment where they invite you into the office and put you in front of a whiteboard and let you answer the questions in real time, which is why I cannot stress enough why someone really needs to know the basics at the very, very least of their skills, because the danger of doing everything with AI, which I wouldn't tell anybody not to use AI and stuff. But if you become so reliant on it that if it goes away or the power goes out or there's a glitch in the system and you don't know what to do, at the very least, you don't know the basics of what to do, you're going to be stuck, right? And I think companies are picking up on that as well. So if you ever do come in to an in-person assessment, be prepared for your basic skills at the very least to be tested because they know, like AI can do a lot of things. Um, but they also know that I don't want to risk $1 billion company on something that could go away overnight. I want to make sure you can at least do that you can do the job without the tools, at least at a basic level. So there's that. All right. So in terms of getting back to your question, because I went on a tangent, sorry about that. To prepare for a behavioral interview, I would actually get with ChatGPT. And I would say, hey, ChatGPT, I am interviewing with company X for this job. And I would paste in the job description. And I would say, I want you to act like a recruiter and interview me for this job. Ask me a question and then wait for me to respond before you ask another question. Then I would say, once the interview is concluded, give me a score. Tell me what I could improve upon and tell me what you think I excelled in based on my answers. So you can do that for a skill interview, you can do that for a behavioral interview. I think a lot of times what companies are doing with the behavioral questions is they're looking for culture fit to see how well you fit into the company. I think also they're looking for how you think. Even if you say something and you think That was the wrong thing to say. I think companies, well, some of the smarter companies will look at how you think and take that more into consideration than what you actually said, if that makes sense. So, yeah, hopefully answer that question.
It does, absolutely. And, I myself prepare for many conversations with ChatGPT, and it's a great tool as long as you know how to prompt it exactly. And there are loads of places out there to learn how to prompt AIs really well. Do you have any recommendations or where people could go and learn this?
Um, Ironically, if you ask ChatGPT to give you a prompt, it will give you a prompt. If you do a search on job hunting prompts, a lot of them will come up. But you can just simply ask ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever LLM that strikes your fancy. Ask it for a prompt, and it'll give you a prompt to ask it, ironically enough. And then if it works well, try that same prompt on other LLMs out there.
Cool.
That's how I would go about it.
That's awesome. And okay, so from your as a recruiter perspective, should students mention that they used AI to prepare for the interview and why it would help or wouldn't help?
I think at this point, most recruiters assume that you have used AI to some extent to prepare, but I think it's to your advantage to mention it in certain situations. So, what situation? All right, so if I'm interviewing somebody for whatever job, um, and they mention AI tool, I will listen to hear that they use an AI tool to prepare for the role. They did not know how to use the tool beforehand. Um, so they learned the tool and use that tool to prepare. And or they use a tool that they used before, but they use it in a different way. What that communicates to me is that this person is someone who can learn and adapt and grow from it. So that says a lot to me as a potential employer because I know there's going to be something new around the corner every 5 minutes with AI. And somebody who knows how to use a tool or someone who can be introduced to a tool, learn the tool, learn how to use it, that is extremely valuable um, to me. But the fact that you use AI just to prepare, everybody's doing that. But if you tell me that you use AI in a new way, that communicates to me that you can learn and you can adapt, and that's a valuable skill, very valuable.
Excellent. Thank you. And so, how can people make sure they don't make mistakes in how they utilize AI throughout their whole job search? What do you find those mistakes actually being the biggest ones?
What mistakes can make using AI? Hmm. Being over reliant on it, taking your own human insight out of the equation. AI is a great tool, but you still have to put your own mental acuity to it. I'll give you a big glaring example of this. So there's this company called Klarna. All right. Klarna is a pretty decent sized company, and they had a few hundred customer service agents. And CEO made a big boast. I'm going to lay off several of the customer service people and replace them with AI because AI is awesome. And the cost, I can save so much money for the company, and they can answer customer questions 70% better than human beings do. This is what he was saying in 2023 and in 2024. But I read recently that they're planning a big recruitment drive because the AI isn't doing as well a job as the humans did. Although it saved them a lot of money, it was costing them in terms of customer satisfaction. And people just were tired of talking to a machine. They want to talk to a real person. So that's an example of being so reliant on a machine, thinking it's going to do everything, but it not working out the way you think it would. Uh, you might rely so much on AI optimizing your resume to the point that you overlook a mistake that is made. or maybe it added additional information, right? LLMs have a habit of hallucinating, right? And so it's very possible that they can add things to your resume that they think solves the solution of what you ask it to do, but it's not true, you know. I know of cases where lawyers were preparing legal briefs using ChatGPT, and ChatGPT added in fake citations. It just made up some law cases from the past and put it into their legal brief. And the opposing counsel didn't notice it, but the judge did because they thought, "Huh, that's an interesting case. Never heard that before." And so they went to look up the case, and the case didn't exist. And so that lawyer got sanctioned. He got a big fine and big embarrassment. It was a big news story, very embarrassing. But all that to say is, no matter how great and awesome um, these LLMs are, you still have to have a human being in the loop to oversee things and to make sure that it's still that make sure you get the outcome that you expect, that you want. So do not become over reliant on AI is the biggest thing I would say. Let it optimize your resume, let it help you prepare for interviews, let it help you write a cover letter, but still read through it. Still give it that human gut check. Still maybe even verify the information with another LLM or a Google search. Um, you got to be sure because once it's out there, that's a representation of you. And as far as the employer is concerned, this is what you did, not ChatGPT. So if ChatGPT does it wrong and you don't catch it, you might not be considered for a role, and you might not even know why you're not considered for the role because they're not obligated to tell you why. You'll just get an email that says, "Thanks for applying, but we hired somebody else. Try again next time." So there you go.
Awesome. Thank you. And so, what would be your top three final things that you would advise all our audience to start doing immediately in their job search in the world of AI?
I would say focus on building a strong personal brand. Again, you want to be found outside of job boards. I would say start a side hustle uh, because you don't want to be reliant on one company to fill all your employment needs. I say that as someone who's been laid off probably 4 times throughout my career. You know, it's good to have a side hustle going, but most importantly, especially if you're early in your career and you haven't really found your first real job, so to speak. And this is sort of a weird advice, but I've seen it work for me. Get a job as a recruiter. Why do I say that? If you are a uh, college student, maybe you're a year out from graduating or not too far away, get a job as a recruiter. That way you will get connections inside of companies that may hire you later, right? So if you're recruiting, if you are a coder and you are a technical recruiter, then you have an advantage because you understand all this technology stuff. Most recruiters don't, not the level as a coder would. So you can go to a recruiting firm and say, "Hey, I actually build this stuff. I understand how these people talk. I can tell you who's good, who isn't. I know where all the forums are. I can verify stuff that some of the other recruiters can't because I actually know this stuff." Search firm says, "Sure, come on board." You come on board, you're talking to people. You're talking to people on the same level you are. You're talking to senior management who says, "I need to find, 15 coders for my company." Okay, great. And while you're looking, you're making that connection with that person. And then when you graduate and you're ready to get a job, well, you can reach out to people you've talked to in the past. Say, "I remember talking to so and so. He was the VP of engineering at this company, at this startup. This startup I see is booming. I know the guy who founded it because I interviewed him when he was just getting started. Let me reach out to him." So you're having all these connections that you normally wouldn't have just coming out of school. Just out of school, nobody knows who you are. Maybe they won't be as inclined to give you a chance because they don't know who you are from the next guy. But if you call up someone and say, "Hey, remember me? I was a recruiter who got you your job back in the day," or "I introduced you to some people. You didn't get the job, but I at least introduced you to some people." that should give you some kind of, warm, fuzzy feeling with that person. And they'll reply to your email faster than someone they don't know. And then you can leverage that into an opportunity. So I would say, yeah, become a recruiter um, for a year, maybe two, depends on where you are in school, you know. And then when you graduate, you'll have some connections.
Well,
Kind
well,
of weird,
if that's not thinking outside of the box, I don't know what
but
that is. Amazing. Thank you. So awesome, Jim. Thank you so much for giving all these incredible insights to our students and all of the other audience. It sounds like in the age of machines, what's really going to make you stand out is how you utilize those machines and understanding how they work, understanding how recruiters are thinking, but most
Mhm.
importantly, is uh, in the age of machines, human connection is still going to be something that's going to help you stand out the most. Networking and demonstrating your human abilities, essentially,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Thank you so much once again for coming to our podcast, for speaking to our audience. You're incredible. And I really look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thank you much.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Decoded. And if you're a tech leader navigating the evolving world of AI and organizational design, or if you're someone looking to break into tech, change careers, upskill, or simply find the right job support, we're here to help. At Coding Temple, we specialize in talent pipeline advice and workforce upskilling, preparing people and teams for the future of work through hands-on training and our dedicated careers camp. Thanks again for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time as we explore more ways to thrive in a tech-driven world.